Yo, what's good, everybody? I'm actually in Mexico right now at a resort, hanging out, and folks keep asking me about my thoughts on this tragic school shooting out in Florida. I'm not going to say too much about it via video. You can follow my Facebook and Twitter and all of that, and I'm giving my comments here and there. But for the video, I did want to say this. I did want to say this. In the event of a tragedy, it seems that there's a big group of people that look to politicians, look to lawmakers, look to government agents, officials, and they say, do something about it. Do something about this. Do something about this. Do something about this. That's the problem. Not every issue, and in fact, I would say all issues, but just for the sake of the video, most issues cannot be resolved by government action. Quite often, in terms of what the government is, it causes issues, it creates issues. That's what this is. When this institution has a monopoly on use of force and violence, is what happens. But there are cultural issues that can be addressed without use of government. Not everything needs to be looked at to the government and say, oh, fix this, Big Daddy, fix it. There's things that you can do. There's things that I can do. There's things that a lot of cooperative individuals can do to solve issues. This happens every single day with innovation on, some products, goods, services that make people's lives easier, raises their living standards. This same approach, in the event of a tragedy, is how you have to approach it. As in, you see a problem, obviously, you identify it. In this case, who knows, mental health, yada, yada, everybody has their thoughts on it. But you look at that and you say, okay, what can I as an individual do to help this issue or alleviate this problem, and maybe work towards such environment in which situations like this will not come about, or will come about at a lesser rate. There's always something that you can do as an individual to work towards that goal. It does not require government. And government, the inefficient mess that it is. I mean, hell, even right now with this recent given scenario with the FBI, I believe, being tipped off and them not doing anything about it, just goes to show that these guys are often incompetent. So looking to these guys and as if they are your savior is a huge problem. And I see, of course, politicians are doing that, but to see these leaders in terms of, and by leaders I use that loosely, but that's how they act. That's how people see them as, whether it be celebrities and entertainers who, of course, look to the government. Oh, you got to do something about this. We need legislation, and it always seems to come about with the idea that you have to violate somebody else's rights in order for this to be resolved. And in this case, obviously, is gun control. And that's something that we're not budging on, and we shouldn't. But you look at this situation where, the guy murdered 17 people. He didn't give a fuck about the loss. That's the harsh reality. But that still does not mean that you have to sit there with your thumb up your behind as something like this happens. You can look at it, you can assess the situation, and you can see what it is that you can do as an individual to work towards maybe some sort of resolution by not violating somebody else's rights, because that's all gun control is. It's, hey, law-abiding citizens make it more difficult for them to own certain types of weapons, make it more difficult for them to own guns, come up with these lists. And if they're on this list, questionable list, even though there's been evidence of people that should not have been on it, put them on these lists. And if they're on these lists, they can't legally buy a gun. And all of these issues that we point to are, taking place with people either illegally obtaining the weapon, which happens more often than not, or they're in the process, obviously, of shooting somebody. I mean, murder is already illegal, but even in the process of where they're bringing the guns and things like that, it's already illegal. So your laws aren't that are in, the laws that are in place right now are not preventing these guys, and I mean, it's a criminal. That's what makes them a criminal. So all you do is you punish good people who don't wish to wish harm and often wish to even defend themselves. It doesn't matter what you feel like. Oh, well, they don't need this kind of weapon to defend themselves. That's not up to you to decide. That's not how freedom works. But seriously, though, saying this with a dead straight face, there are things that you can do as an individual to help resolve said issues. Stop looking to Big Daddy government to resolve it for you. Doesn't matter what you elected them to do. Doesn't matter what they, what good, intentions they have. It's all about the kids, right? It's all about, we gotta save the children, is what they say. And of course, you gotta trade in your liberty for that. Oh, well, so-and-so in this country, they're not having these problems. Who cares? There's cultural issues that exist, right? Within, no matter where you're at. There's cultural issues that exist all over the world, cultural things that happen that are, things that have to be addressed. It's culture issues that need to be addressed. I talk about these all the time in my videos. You address them. And you do not have to go to Big Daddy government in order to try to resolve the issue. There's things that you can do as an individual to help resolve the issue, to help to resolve these problems that come about. There's things that you can do. And I think those are more important to highlight, as opposed to looking at the Big Daddy government and expecting them and the proof of their incompetence to actually try to resolve it. Don't depend on those idiots, man. And that's all I wanted to say. Sucks what happened out there in Florida. I wouldn't wish that on nobody, and I can imagine the type of, pain and suffering that people that, whether they're their kids being involved, brothers, sisters, and I really, really despise seeing something like that happen to youngsters who didn't have an opportunity to really live their life out. And I have a problem with that. But this also goes to a lot of what I talk about with black culture and stuff like that, not to try to deviate from the point, but of black homicide and that being a problem that it is. It's a different sort of issue, but I don't look to the government to look to resolve these issues through culture, through, conversations, through voluntary, just through cooperation and just putting that stuff out there and starting a sort of conversation so we can get to a resolution is very important, and that's how I approach it. But looking to Big Daddy government is an inefficient way to actually solve a problem. But it's easy to do that because all you're doing is grandstanding, saying, oh, we need the Big Daddy government's what we got them in there to do, even though there's so many, even though it doesn't make sense, and quite often with the situations that happen, even though it doesn't make any sense because, like I said, people violate these laws, break the laws that are already in existence. So putting more laws in place doesn't necessarily resolve the issue, even though that's the case. They don't care, even though there's so much proof that these government officials are so incompetent to solve these conflicts. Maybe they have kind of conflicting interests. Either way, they're not competent enough to try to resolve it. Even though that exists, they still continue to grandstand because it's so easy to do that. It doesn't really require you to do anything. Hey, just pass a law. Make me feel like I'm doing something. It's so sad. Culture, man. That's how you change people's lives. Not just by writing on a piece of paper. Hey, follow this law. And again, in the process, you're trading in liberty. In the process, you are violating other people's rights because some dickhead went and killed a bunch of people. That's just not right. Culture. There's something that you can do and do not feel helpless. In a situation like this, do not feel helpless. Do not, and don't look at, always looking at people what are the, what can they do to, like, looking at always looking at these people and trying to see what they can do to try to resolve the issue rather than looking at what you could do, how you can be directly influential into some sort of resolution. That's all I'm saying. Y'all be easy, man. This video went a lot longer than I had planned, but I just had to say this. People keep blowing up my tweets, and I say, things here and there, and people keep asking me about my thoughts. So I wanted to do a video, make sure I had this out there. So y'all be easy, man.